Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the difference between locking out on a squat versus locking out on a leg press. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's go into this a little further. And the reason I want to talk about this, not only did I have someone in the comments ask me about, hey, why shouldn't you lock out on squats? I've been told not to. And you do see people who say that not to for the same reasons people say that on bench press. Don't lock out on the bench press. They're trying to tell you it's bad for your joints. The truth is it isn't. Now, there's another one of these videos circulating, and this happens every year. There's a new one of these videos out there. People just aren't used to that yet because it always makes it on camera. Every year, someone hyperextends their leg, hyperextends their knee on a leg press, and their leg gets bent backwards the other way. I haven't watched the newest video, but I've heard about it, and people are asking about it. I have no desire to see yet another one of these. I don't need to see that the leg press is a dangerous exercise. I don't need to see another piss-poor trainer with no knowledge of training because he took some silly-ass class and read some bodybuilding magazines explaining to people how to train and putting them on a leg press and then hurting them. I'm not a big fan of the leg press other than to show off, because it is a great showboating exercise. It is a great showboating exercise. Or for maybe some people who need a little more metabolic fatigue, whose lower back gives out on a squat. I would never, ever use it as a primary leg exercise. Now, that being said, we'll go into that in a minute. But as far as the squat goes, people always come up with excuses of how the squat damages the knees. You know how squat damages your knees? Because you're using a knee sleeve or a knee wrap. That's how your knees get damaged on a squat. Or because you have weak hamstrings. All right? You don't train your hamstrings hard enough. You don't train your hamstrings correctly. They don't get enough work. You become quad dominant. That's pretty much how 99% of knee injuries happen from the squat. It has nothing to do with your range of motion. You always have people like, no, you shouldn't squat to proper depth because it'll hurt your knees. It hurts my knees. I'm like, well, no, you don't know how to squat. Maybe you have a muscle imbalance. Maybe you are using a wrap or a sleeve and then you're going to complain because your knees hurt later. Well, no shit. Sleeves and wraps fuck your knees up. That's the reality of it. That's the real world. That's why your knees hurt from your squats. That's why they hurt from going so deep. Lose that shit. And if they're still hurting after that, strengthen your hamstrings. Take a deload. Your knees shouldn't be hurting from squatting. Going too low doesn't cause it, and locking out doesn't cause it either. If anything, at the top, the lockout, the knee joint is the strongest. It can handle the most weight on the squat. This should not be a problem for you. Full range of motion training with proper workloads, proper technique, and proper training programming, including proper deloads, is the best possible thing you can do for most of your joints. For strengthening them, making them healthier, putting them through heavy workloads. Putting a heavy load on a joint, done correctly, can strengthen your joints, particularly when done through a full range of motion. It makes them healthier. The other best thing you can do for your joints is obviously strengthen opposing muscle groups. Make sure that you don't have one side that's too strong, and if you do, it will be the safest side, meaning it's very difficult to have hamstrings that are too strong for your quads, but you can have quads that are too strong for your hamstrings easier. It's very difficult to get your rear delts so strong that they overpower your front delts, but front delts that overpower rear delts are the norm. They're extremely common. Most lifters have this problem. So strengthening a lot of the posterior chain, the posterior side of most of your joints, is the best way to keep them healthy on top of training them through full range of motion. This idea that not locking out on a squat is going to help protect your joints isn't true. If anything, you're training the joint to not be as strong or as mobile. And again, the squat, it's very, very, very difficult to hyperextend on a squat. The leg press, by different standard, look at the leg press. Leg press is a totally different animal because you have really adjustable footing. With a squat, you only have any given foot position or angle that you're really going to be able to do the full range of motion on while keeping yourself upright enough to balance a bar with whatever bar path you're using, whatever bar placement you're using. You're not going to have a lot. You're not going to have 8 different variations of foot positions you can get away with and still do the full range of motion with any given bar position on your back for any given person. You don't have variability. On a leg press, you have literally unlimited foot position. All right. That means that it's very easy to put yourself into positions that feel like they're stronger, that you get the strongest leverage, because you can adjust your feet for the perfect leverage. There are times when your 10 rep max on a leg press based upon where you place your feet could literally be 300 pounds difference. Meaning with one foot position, you might only be able to do 700 pounds for 10 reps. In another foot position, you can easily do 1,000 for 10 plus. Easily. But the problem is that it's also easy to overload the leg press because you're taking out all the core. You can really dig in and find perfect leverages to put the most weight on it, to cheat on the exercise in a way, and it's on a sled. It's very, very easy to find the leverages for yourself on the leg press that let you lift mind-boggling amounts of weight without actually the muscles necessarily having to work harder. And that's why when I try to tell people that I used to showboat with the leg press, that's why I don't leg press. I think it's a show-off exercise, that I used to do 2,000 pounds for work sets. And people are like, oh, you're lying, you're full of shit. I'm like, no, guys, that really isn't that impressive. That's the whole point. Like, that sounds impressive, and it looks impressive to people watching. When you load a leg press all the way up with as many plates as it'll hold, and you find a 250-pound guy and have him climb up on top and put plates in his lap, it looks impressive when you crank out 10 or 15 reps. All right, it looks impressive in hell. But you know what? Anyone who can squat 500 pounds to depth for a max, I promise you can leg press 2,000 pounds. I promise you they can. And you guys have seen me squat over 500. And I used to be stronger in my 20s. So to me, it's a showboat exercise. All right, it's an exercise that you can find the leverage. If you can squat 500 pounds, you can find a foot position somewhere on that leg press. And if you get used to doing it, get a little bit of practice, you come in a leg press once a week, you'll be able to do 2,000 for reps. You just got to find the right foot positions. It can be done. And what I'm saying is it actually isn't that impressive. So people think that, oh, he's bragging, he's lying. I'm not. If you don't believe me, get any of your squats up to 500 pounds and then play around with the leverages and foot positions on the leg press till you find one where you can lift the most weight, and hammer the fuck out of it every week, once a week. And watch how fast you get to 1,500 or 2,000 pounds on it. It's going to happen a lot faster than you think. And then you'll realize that I'm actually telling you guys the truth. It's not that impressive. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that it sounds crazy impressive, but it isn't. But it's a way to showboat and make other dudes think that you're really strong as fuck. But the reality is, because it's easy to find leverages that will let you lift the most weight, it's very easy to put more weight on there sometimes than your joints will be able to handle at certain positions. And when you find a foot position that allows for really, really high leverages while also placing your feet in a position versus your body and hips and knees that allows your knees to hyperextend at the lockout, where it stretches, you feel your hamstrings stretch when you lock out, and then your feet get way out in the front. All right, so usually when you're higher up on the leg press, when you lock your legs out, it's easy to hyperextend the knee. Well, what happens when you hyperextend a knee with hundreds of pounds more on there? Even when you factor in the mechanical loss from the angle of the 45-degree slide, when it's still hundreds of pounds more than you would ever be able to squat, it's a load that your knee joint was never intended to take under a normal full range of motion load, and now you've hyperextended it. That causes people's knees to basically snap and bend over the wrong way. That's what you're seeing in these videos. You have trainers who are helping them find leverages that they're really strong at. And it's usually those high positions where you can hyperextend the knees on the lockout. If you're not careful, when you lock it at the top and they lock it there and hold it for a second, bam, shit snaps, comes backwards. And yeah, it's gross. If you watch it happen, you're going to get sick. And that's why I'm going to recommend people don't watch these videos. That's why I don't watch these videos, because it's going to make you sick to your stomach. Most people, you're going to get nauseated seeing it. But you know what? It should also show you why the leg press is a showboat exercise, and it's not really that great. And it is dangerous as hell when you showboat on it. It's something people need to be aware of, and that was one of those things that I knew. So when I used to showboat on it, I used to skip the lockout. All right, I didn't ever lock my knee fully on that exercise because I did use that high position to use like 2,000 pounds. But the point is, yeah, it's very dangerous. It's a showboat exercise, but you got to know how to find the leverages right, and you got to know how to do it. But you know what? It doesn't make your legs any bigger or stronger than the squat does. I still think the squat is the king of thighs. It's my opinion. And that's as someone who's used both. I never saw any additional development from doing a bunch of 2,000-pound leg presses. I never saw anything. Heavy barbell squats always work best for me, and I think they work best for most people. And I think they're an overall more useful exercise. I generally would only recommend the leg press as an accessory movement for people whose core and their lower back can't keep up and give them the volume they need for maximum leg development when they're chasing maximum leg development. All right? For people who need that extra volume for their sport or for whatever reason, it's an accessory. It's also an accessory for some people for their deadlift. And that's a totally different animal. And again, we're talking about people who are top tier deadlifters, because you want to get strong at the deadlift, do tons of deadlifts, do glute ham raises, do tons of rowing for your back. Problem solved. You'll be strong as hell on the deadlift. All right, do as much maximum recoverable volume on the deadlift as you can handle every week with any proven program. Get your hamstrings strong, get your back strong. Your deadlift's going to be awesome. Your deadlift is going to be the best you're probably personally going to be able to get it in that time frame. However, for people who are at a certain threshold, who are still sticking off the floor, the leg press for advanced elite power lifters might give them, if they train it right, another 5 or 10 pounds on their deadlift because of the extra pop off the floor. So it has its place as an accessory. It does have its place, and for certain field athletes, it has its place as an accessory. But for most people, I just don't recommend it. I think you're going to get more mileage out of the squat. You're going to get more overall muscle, strength, fitness, everything out of it. That's just my opinion. But as far as locking out on them, that's the danger of the leg press. If you're in a high position on the plates, on the ramp, whatever you want to call it, to where your knees are capable of hyperextending and you're using a heavy weight, yeah, that injures people. Plenty of people have been injured. We've seen multiple people get injured this way on video. It's common enough that it gets caught on video. Again, people have these ideas that machines are somehow safer than barbell exercises, and in my opinion, they absolutely aren't, and this shows it. But as far as locking out on the squat, if you're training correctly, you should not be afraid of doing a full range of motion on the squat, and certainly not the lockout. There can be cases made for biomechanics in certain people that going too low can be a problem. Okay, we can make an argument for that on a case-by-case basis. But the average person should have no fear whatsoever of locking out at the top of a squat. And don't let this stuff with a leg press, which is usually the concern, worry you. And a lot of people get that mixed up. They mix up the squat and the leg press even when someone like a doctor or someone's giving you advice. And their concern is that you're going to hyperextend the knee under load. That's pretty hard to do with a squat. Usually if you have a way to hyperextend the knee at the top of a squat, you end up dumping the bar in front of you. Because of the biomechanics involved. You're going to tend to dump forward with the bar by the time you reach that position or when you're close to hyperextending the knee. For most people, it's not really a concern with your technique. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.